One thing I really like about this bank is how much everyone genuinely cares about their customers and about the community and about each other. Always trying to put ourselves in the customer's place. What would I expect if I were the customer? And then we try to take it up a few notches from there. And it's kind of like being part of the family when you're banking with us.
I'll call this work session to order. And I will immediately turn it over to our city manager for perusal of the agenda.
Mayor, we'll do the agenda, come back, cover a couple of just kind of quick announcements in the open session, and then we'll request a closed session. First item, approval of the minutes of last week's meeting.
Good minute. It kind of threw me because every time it referred to me as Mayor Pro Tim Sims. And I was thinking, they called me Tim Sims.
Pro Tim Sims.
Pro Tim Sims.
Good, Mayor, let's move right on down the road here.
Tim.
Mr. Shaw. Item number 2, ordinance 7394. This is the request for the specific use permit for the Type A manufactured home. We originally considered this 2 weeks ago, at which time we did a full briefing. The commission discussed and had it tabled for a date certain, such date being today. I believe that the questions the mayor had were answered, and the item is back on the agenda for your discussion and consideration.
What was Mayor's specific question?
The fit of this into that overall area out there. What may or may not ever develop, the railroad track to the west, 2 roads to the east and to the north.
And the planes take off right to the east.
The planes take off immediately to the east.
Predominantly, that is the predominant runway.
I have a sense that the developer or the owner of most of this property here, if there was an intent to do a housing project or whatever, that it would probably already started.
Well, he's notified.
Yeah. I mean,
Nobody protested, or nobody had any objections, or?
Nobody had any negative comments. There's one major property owner who does do residential development, and there may or may not be plans in the future for residential development here. So that's one thing. I mean, the major property owner who sold this property, he may or may not develop the remainder of this property as a residential subdivision. But I guess the best way that I would sum it up, what we talked about last week, is I think the concerns were, would this be setting a precedence that would have a negative impact on possible residential subdivisions in the future? And I believe, first of all, looking at the overall area, when you have, this isn't a full section, but it's probably 2/3 of the section. And probably almost half of that is zoned industrial along the railroad track. North of this, across the 46, is zoned industrial. To the south is zoned industrial. It has limited access. Across the street to the east is outside city limits, and you already have what's going on there. So you've got some real issues just about this being conducive for residential development anyway, but if you do your SWOT analysis on it, it does have an opportunity associated with it, in that it is open and it's under one ownership. So I think that's why staff, if this was a smaller lot, single wide, I really do think that the size of the lot and the type of manufactured home being proposed, because once it's on the foundation, it is a home. And I think if you have an issue with the mobile home, if you would allow a site-built home or a stick-built home on this lot, I think you'd be hard pressed to argue not allowing double-wide manufactured manufactured honey. And I think that as long as staff, and what we would do, and what we will do, is we won't let development occur like it's occurred across the street, where you have one major property owner, or one property owner that has a deep lot, and he wants to start making more money, and so they start selling off little pieces behind their lot, and then you are stuck with having these little access easements everywhere, and then you have platting problems, and you have addressing problems, and all those kinds of things. We would not allow that, and so if this did develop, all you would do is have frontage, the properties that have frontage, and we would make sure that if something were to occur behind here, it still has the opportunity to occur behind these homes.
But am I right, and you brought this up last time, that if we were gonna follow our strategic plan, it would be the frontage is supposed to be retail, right, or large, like large box or some kind of retail on the front, and then we move back into transitional and housing.
Well, really, in this area, if you're not on like a corridor like Sonsi is a little unique, and then that's the loop, and you see retail zoning all the way down that. Typically on our sections, we try to follow the neighborhood unit concept, where you have non-residential developments on the corners, and then residential, and you can transition from high density residential to lower density, but we try to avoid the strip retail development as a practical matter. So yeah, you could still look for non-residential development on the corners here, but we would probably recommend this stay agriculture until such time that it maybe does develop into something higher density residential. Or this probably what's going to happen is this probably could develop into just a larger lot, rural type estate development.
And that's a concept that is put forth in the comprehensive plan, the rural style subdivisions.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 3, appointments. We have 3 up today. Amarillo Hospital District, as you know, Ms. Dove tendered her resignation. We have the name, and I apologize in advance if I can't pronounce this correctly, but it's Dr. Rakshanda Rahman. Texas Tech, that close?
Yeah, that's good. I think I'll just say Dr. Rahman.
I think this is mine, Dr. Rahman.
Yeah.
Next one is your Comprehensive Plan Implementation Advisory Committee. Of course, Mr. Church resigned and has taken his seat on the Potter County Commissioners Court. We have a suggested name who is willing to serve should you choose, and that's Mr. Steve Rogers. Now, Mr. Rogers is on the Traffic Commission as well, but is willing to fill this role.
So he's gonna fill both? Okay.
One of your honored Amarillo 101 graduates. And then Texas Panhandle Centers suggests Ms. Bryan for a reappointment. Moving on to the consent agenda. Consent item A, prefabricated restroom buildings. This will be 3 of them: the Amarillo Athletic Complex, Seaview Park, and Greenway Park. And I believe we have a typical photograph of one in there. These were, we bounced back and forth. Some years we purchased these off of one of the cooperative purchasing contracts, and try to follow that next year and bid them and see what kind of competition we can generate. We generated some competition this time, and the price went down.
Huge difference in the bids. Do you know these people?
This is who normally provides them. I would suggest that, if not all, the vast majority of these that we own come from this company.
All right.
Yeah, we bought 2 years ago, we did 20 of them.
Yeah.
With that
Yeah, a
CO
little
money.
farther to go than that, but yeah.
This, on the Los Angeles golf course, don't they look like this?
They do. And most of the school park sites that ended up with new restrooms because of that CO are those.
Cool.
They're pretty handy. Rod and his staff basically will have a slab prepared with the utilities stubbed out. These come in on a truck and a crane, so that sets them down. Connections are made, and you're done. Very quick.
It's one of those that's constant quiet, and that's a 3.5 mile trail.
They've had very good luck. They're durable. The users can't damage those near as easily as they can some of the other ones.
Did they just hose them out? Did they come in and just kind of hose them out?
Power wash them out, yeah. It's the stainless steel inside, but we never hose them out.
There's one at Elwood, and then there's one of the old brick-built ones at Elwood. One's in, the new one's in the southwest corner,
The ones on the east side.
over by the
Senior
senior park.
Park.
Okay.
And there in the substation is also a CXT product that kind of fabricated some different use.
Have the roll-up. Okay. Item B, open horizontal breathing air compressors. Also a photograph. These are the devices that fill the SCBA bottles for the fire department.
With an ATM on it.
An ATM on it?
It's like an ATM.
Not the hospital.
Yeah.
Pretty sure if
Big
it,
money drawer.
yeah, that could be a way to save money in the fire department budget. Put a quarter in to have your bottle filled.
Yeah. Don't stop at a quarter, pretty desperate for them.
Pretty high pressure. Those compress well over 2,000 psi. Get those bottles ready.
Is that station number 13 or something?
It should be station 13, which is under construction.
Okay,
In the
so
text.
in that sentence, equipment from these locations will be moved to fire training facility and station 13.
13 at Johnstown Park. And if you haven't been by there, drive by. Quite a bit of activity. Item C, change order for your Hillside Road project. This piece is actually on the part of that that's called 58, which is the Hillside Road project. And if you would, flip over. Mark and his group tried to kind of give us a representation. When this was initially excavated, this project, we're taking out the roadway, we're taking out the base and the subgrade, and then we start back up. When they initially did that, this was all saturated. We did an earlier change order to continue to excavate, and basically they never got out of the water or the wet material. The circles are drawing your attention to where there's cracks you can see in what would be the north half of that roadway. And you can see where the dirt's wet. You see the two different colors of the dirt. They've been working on this, Mark, trying to de-water for about 2 months.
Yes.
We're not having the success that we want, and when we come back to this, we've got to have the best chance we can give it of this road holding up. So the change order is for a textile product that will go down and then the base be built up on top of this.
Which will separate the wet from the dry.
And provide, just, it spreads the loads across larger areas. It provides stability, keeps it from
Because moisture,
squishing for a non-technical term.
does moisture just been seeping in here for so long?
That's what we believe, is that these cracks have been open long enough that they've gotten enough moisture in it that the soil below it has just gotten so saturated.
We have gone through with the utilities department, we spent significant time trying to find out, do we have a water leak
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
From the plumbing over here, perhaps.
from the
Yeah.
irrigation system over there?
Yeah, it's not underground, it's from above ground.
The best that we can tell.
Hmm.
TxDOT has used this product, and I think it's actually on Western in some portions.
From Wolfland to 34th Street has the same, similar product underneath.
And it's held up and worked. So we need to bring this to you and see if we can get this done.
what do we do about, like the portion that this car is driving on?
Mhm.
Are we gonna tear that out also?
Yes, sir. That is phase 4 project. The part that's excavated at the bottom is phase 3.
Okay.
We're into it. We expect to have the same problem on phase 4 because, as you can see, the cracks extend across that. So the change order actually includes phase 4. It's enough material to do phase 3 and phase 4. If for some reason when we get into phase 4, it's not as we expect, we just won't use.
Change order down the quantity.
Right.
And Mark, this is enough to carry you around about to where the YMCA is that?
Yes, it stretches from just about from the intersection at Western east to the first driveway at the YMCA ball field. What we think part of the problem is this area had to be built up to match the elevation that Western is at, and the material came out at Wya Lake over there, and it's just not very good material, and so when that water starts seeping down through it, it's clay, and it just soaked that water up.
Mark, your
That
asphalt
asphalt's about
section
8
6.
inches on that. We're not putting back as much asphalt when we go back because we actually believe that the thickness of the asphalt is what caused some of the cracking that we have out there. It's the same pavement design as 34th Street between Coulter and Sonsi, and you all know what kind of cracks we have out there. And we think that it just makes it kind of acts as like concrete pavement, and it gets stiff enough that it causes cracks about every 30 feet or so. It was just it's kind of a flaw in the design. So we will use a little bit different. When we go back, the asphalt will be more flexible. It won't be as rigid as this is.
Kind of a reminder back to last fall, some of the motion with some of the money that's become available to us through TxDOT. The money that was going to South Coulter, south of the loop, is going to come over and try to finish the 58th reconstruction. This project goes from originally Bell Street to Georgia. Take that funding in lieu of losing it and use that TxDOT money to go from Georgia out to Washington, finish that. So you'll have a complete rebuild section from Washington west all the way back across town. We have budgeted in the current CIP the money to do Georgia to Washington. We'll instead move it over and pick up 34th, which is the next one on our list of major reconstructs. So this year we'll get two for the price of one in effect.
Good.
Item D, lease approval on the Mary Bivens building. This is an opportunity for Center City of Amarillo to move up to the front of the building for the space formerly held by the Amarillo Symphony.
How much, when I was reading through this, I didn't know how much more that was gonna be than what they're already paying.
They're paying rent now to
the
the
chamber.
chamber.
It's a
They
sublease.
lease 2 offices from the chamber, and they're going to get space in the basement, and that's what they currently aren't leasing. Otherwise, the rent is relatively simple. Their rent's gonna go up about $500 a month, but their board approved that.
Probably should know, but where's the symphony going?
They're over here
They went to the 7th floor of the
Amarillo
Emerald.
building.
in the Amarillo building.
And they're out. They've already had their opening over there.
They've been out for 3 or 4 months.
Item number 5 will be our presentation on the blizzard. Kind of a more detailed look at what you saw last week. There will be a large number of city employees that are here.
Good.
Extremely excited about the opportunities. So when we go out there, if it appears the room is overflowing, it likely
Those are friendly.
will be. We ended up tallying just a little bit over 500 city staff that were directly involved in the response and the recovery. We'll show some of the numbers that go with that today. You'll see the division directors, the department heads, and then in many cases supervisors and actually, the line crews that were out doing it. So I think it'll be neat, and some of the pictures I think will surprise you.
Now they get to work on potholes.
I was just gonna ask when we're talking about this asphalt stuff about potholes.
And you've probably noticed the,
I've got a list.
let us have them. Snow is great for a lot of things. Snow also has a unique ability of growing potholes, and it also grows orange road cones. And there's quite a few of them around town that have begun to grow out of the potholes. As we find others, we'll mark those and then get on them.
The
As
official
quick
city
as we
bird,
can.
the orange cone.
The orange cone?
Okay.
Well, we'd like to say that's progress. Any questions on the agenda? Okay, Mayor, if I could, I'd like to get on the front page, item B10, your 83rd legislative session. Just give you a quick update. Some action that's going to go on tomorrow. If you'll recall, in January, City Commission considered and approved a resolution to oppose efforts to take municipalities in Texas out of the realm of rate making, or probably called primary jurisdiction. Your opportunity on a regulated utility such as Atmos or Xcel Energy is ready for a rate increase to bring that first to this body, to allow you and the other elected bodies from across whatever the service region might be to review that, to engage your consultants, your experts, and in effect, rather than acting as merely the city of Amarillo, who is one customer, you act on behalf of the entirety of the customer base in your community. We knew at that time that there was a report, an interim report from State Affairs Committee in the House that led us to believe there would be a move to take that rate-making authority away from you and to take you out of original jurisdiction. Those bills were ultimately filed, two of them, House Bill 1148 and House Bill 1149. Those bills are up for their first hearing tomorrow at the House State Affairs Committee. The author of both of those bills sits on that committee.
Who?
Patricia Harless,
Where's she from?
Houston. Now,
Gas.
these are Centerport energy bills. I don't know the details of what prompted them, but let me give you an example of something that I've never seen this before in the legislature. One of those bills has language in it that says a regulated utility can step out of that original jurisdiction merely by serving that jurisdiction notice that they're no longer under. So, at least in my mind, there's a logical disconnect there. I'm regulated, I must be regulated for a reason and a purpose, but I have the ability to step out of that merely by saying, you know what, I'm out of that. And what this would do then is put it all back at the Railroad Commission or at the Public Utility Commission. As you well know, the City of Amarillo, in the rate papers, we don't feel they've been served well by actions of the Railroad Commission. We've been very vigorous and active in pursuing that. The bill's posted late Friday. They'll be up tomorrow. We're very fortunate Representative Smithy is still on State Affairs. We've been in direct contact with he and his office on numerous occasions, as recently as yesterday afternoon, expressing the City of Amarillo is on record. We passed the resolution, you have it in your hands, and in our mind, there's nothing that can be done to make either of these two bills acceptable. The bills have a penalty now. Basically, that if you did choose to intervene, your expenses can never be recovered. Today, that's an important check and balance that goes into a rate-making process. It's not that rate increases are never justified. They certainly can be. No different than us or any other business. Cost increases merit rate increases. But when you no longer have that primary check in place, or you instead punish the group of elected officials who chose to do that, you don't have that. Amarillo's standing, and any other city's standing in these cases moving forward, would be merely as representing yourself as a customer. And we're a large customer, make no mistake about it. You pay over $2 million a year just for one of your well bills in electricity. So we're a customer, but that's still not as important as representing the approximately 70,000 households in your community.
Well, plus it's, the consequences of it are removing local control.
That's exactly what this does.
Well, and it removes it so far from the voting public because the Railroad Commission is appointed, not even elected. At least PUC
Railroad
is
Commission is
elected.
elected.
By the way,
Oh, the other way around.
Yes,
Oh,
the railroad is elected.
Oh, right, okay.
And guess where they get all their money from?
Yeah,
And also, well, their argument is that, well, all this unnecessary money is being spent by the utility and by the public when it doesn't really serve their needs. And plus, besides, the PUC has a consumer affairs division that will be looking at what's
Yeah.
in reality.
Yes.
I don't think
They're not really
they've ever
accountable.
won a case.
Okay.
We've been in contact with Atlas Energy. They are not supporting these bills. Haven't had a chance to follow up with Excel, but I have no indication whatsoever that they're supporting these bills. Have you heard back?
Yes, they're in the same posture as Atlas. They're not actively supporting it. Of course, if it falls their way, they're happy, but
They're not going to step into the fray.
Centerpoint.
You know, it's one of those cases where maybe in one area of the state, not saying this is a fact, but maybe there's an area of the state where cities and utility companies are more litigious. But that's certainly not the case for us out here in West Texas. We have been able to settle the vast majority of our cases. Our appeal to the Railroad Commission in this last rate case was the first time we had gone a full board appeal in 15 years. Yeah, a long time. And so, and that's reflected in what? Some of the lowest utility rates in the entire state are here in West Texas and Amarillo. Gas, electric, they're among the lowest in the state. And we work with our utility companies. And, again, I don't know what's happening in Houston and the Centerpoint, but it must not be good.
In some of the deregulated electric markets, that did not bring rate relief to consumers.
It's the opposite.
In fact, it was just the opposite. Consumer bills rose by 40% plus because the traditional rate making turned itself over on its head. Generally, your big base customers, in effect, are what's covering the base expenses of the utility and the residential consumer benefits. In deregulated markets, the general sense of that went the other way. It was easier if I were an electric provider to go to 1, 2, 3 large consumers and bargain for their business, and then push the cost I didn't get back over on the other side. Another reason the city of Amarillo has historically opposed being deregulated. It's us and a small chunk over kind of in the Texarkana area. It's about all that's left is El Paso.
Right down by Beaumont. It's a large area in deep southeast Texas.
Okay.
Just a corner.
So the majority of the Texas consumers are in a deregulated electric market, and the rates are substantially higher than yours are here. And we're in the midst of an electric rate case.
Okay.
So,
Any
yeah.
other bills that we need to be
The most pressing ones are those two, and again, those are coming up tomorrow
for hearing?
for hearing.
So for deregulated markets, are they going to be on money that this is going to somehow
That this is somehow
Centerpoint
going to benefit them?
Centerpoint covers all that.
If they go, there is a corner I know, because when you look at the map, it's Amarillo, SPS is the big area. You got that little area around Tyler, and there's a little piece,
The golden triangle.
just a little somewhere over there.
Orange, Texas.
Your largest refineries in the state of Texas are in the Beaumont corridor.
Yeah.
It's not surprising if someone from Houston is bringing this bill.
I think what it does, again, remember, they're not just like their gas also, they have a gas unit. So this bill as filed is aimed at the Railroad Commission jurisdiction, but it just makes a motion in a second to apply it also to electric rate cases. That's the concern of our attorney in Austin, Freddie Herrera, that this is just the, what is it, the nose of the camel?
Nose of the tent.
Into the tent, that it's filed as a gas bill, but it can easily be amended to also include electric utility rates.
At 12:30 at night.
They're inexorably linked because in the majority of the state, it's not fair. In the rest of the state, a large part of the power of electric generation is natural gas. You still have substantial coal generation up here. It's an exciting the legislative work will get busier and busier. Filing ends this Friday.
so soon.
The bill numbers are still surprisingly low. Volume's been down at the ledge now. They'll probably catch up.
Because they're working on school finance or what?
Because they have a bunch of freshmen.
All the
legislators.
freshmen.
That's right, they have a bunch of freshmen.
Hmm.
They're probably hanging on to their mentors to see what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, Senate bills are just now in the low 1,000s. The House by now normally would be in that 4,000 or 5,000 range. So, don't know.
Well, maybe some of them will get out of committee then and get on the calendar. So.
Some of them, we have the TMRS bill, and of course, we've sent you resolutions on the payday lending, and you saw where some
Yeah.
bills have been filed on that.
Credit did the texting too?
Craddock filed a texting bill. There's two others that are not Craddock bills that have also been filed. And then I think Ms. Matthews with the Impact Futures Group is down there actually this week working on their synthetic marijuana stuff. Mayor, if we could, we'd ask for a closed session now.
Mayor, Commission, now call a closed session pursuant to the following exceptions.